Okay, good. So a few other things. To be happy and fulfilled, you must be the sign of the hemisphere you were born in. At the same time, you have the opposite effect on the people in the other hemisphere. The impulses of a southern hemisphere Aries will affect the Libra area of a northern hemisphere chart. So I'm a Libra. If I may be trying to be the nicest guy in Libra, but someone in the southern hemisphere might think I'm pushing, even though I'm just still trying to be pleasant, because it affects that area of their chart. The outer planets, that's very unique. They're in opposite signs. So Uranus excitement, I think Saturn did, but Uranus excitement, Neptune romance and adventure and belief, and Pluto's reality and truth. They're in opposite signs. That's the biggest difference between the two. If you meet someone from the southern hemisphere, Pluto would be in Leo or Virgo or Libra or Scorpio, or even Sag now. It's up in Capricorn today. So, but in the southern hemisphere, you're looking at Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. You're looking at the opposite signs. I don't know if I did that right. But the Pluto, there's a difference between Pluto and Leo and Pluto and Aquarius. A different attitude, different signs coming, and a different sense of where one fits into the world, the attitude to the world, the system out there. And that's distinctly noticeable in this, when someone's living in the northern hemisphere chart, someone's living in the southern hemisphere. That's a basic factor, but it's a difference between the two. There's a sense of something different or something like, but really, we have both charts. We have a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere chart. So let's just go ahead here. Oh, physical example. Okay. Okay, I just walked around the universe of my chair in my office. But what I technically did, here's my hat, I just moved around in a circle. I just moved around in a counterclockwise circle. But if you're standing on the other side looking at this, you're going to see, you're on the other side of this TV screen or the monitor, you're going to see my hand going the opposite way. I'm going counterclockwise. You're going to see as if it's going clockwise. Whoa. That's the difference between northern hemisphere. In the northern hemisphere, we look to the south and we see the sun rising on our left, and the sun comes up clockwise and sets. But the sun in its motion, it's because the earth is moving counterclockwise, the sun comes up. We'll show this in a minute. But in the zodiac itself, the sun is still moving counterclockwise within its own zodiac. We'll just look at this a little bit better. Yeah. So it's the only lesson in all my classes I get up and I have a chance to be a little more physical while I'm doing it. Okay, so here you have the northern and southern hemisphere chart. It's the same chart, it's black and white, but you can see the constellations. There's Virgo and Virgo, and you see how it would fold back to each other. But looking at the northern hemisphere, the Earth is rotating counterclockwise. Because the Earth is turning clockwise, we see the sky coming up clockwise. Sun rises in the east to the left, it goes clockwise around. But so the whole zodiac is moving clockwise around, the whole heavens. But in the heavens, the planets themselves are moving counterclockwise within the zodiac. They can go retrograde, but they're basically moving forward is counterclockwise in the zodiac. But in the houses, it's moving, the planets move from the IC to the third house, to the second house, to the first house, to the 12th, the 11th, to the 10th. They move around the opposite way. Okay, so this puts a challenge onto see, many people use different chart forms, very simple chart forms, but they come to simple conclusions and really technical things they didn't see, so they let them be. But a lot of wrong conclusions are made. So the idea of the cusp of each sign is the beginning of that sign, the most important part of that sign, or the cusp of a house. And what sign is there that's going to really throw the affairs into the house? Well, really, it's going like in the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4 in the counterclockwise way in the houses, but count them. And those cusps are considered like the second house gust goes into the second house, third house. But really, in effect, the planets moving from the third into the second, and those second and third house gusts and the IC, it's really projecting into the third. The IC projects into the third house. The third house gust projects into the second. We're going to spend more time on this later. Anyways, there's lots of different perceptions of tuning into music, tuning into the cycle of this, and seeing what's going on. And you have to refine your ability to see it. Once you do, it's very clear. But until you do, you're fighting it in your mind because you haven't built up the matrix and the structure in the matrix to perceive properly. You haven't structured your consciousness to be the consciousness that is yet. In the southern hemisphere, the Earth is moving clockwise, and the planets are rising counterclockwise. So when we look in the southern hemisphere, you look to the north to see the sun, and it rises on your right and moves up and it sets on your left. In fact, when you look at the moon, you see a different side. You see the moon the opposite way. One's looking from the north, one's looking from the south. You see a different face on the moon, a different face to the moon. It's, unless you've seen it, it's, well, you can get pictures of it now on the web, but like this reversal is part of the fact of our resistance. It's part of the balance of nature. Half of the time, at any time with a planet, half of the light from the sun is on the planet, half is on the dark side. It's that balance of light and darkness is always there. In fact, there's always a little bit more light than darkness because the light bends a little bit around the planet. So there's always a little bit more light than darkness in the world. Just for the hopeful. Okay. We're doing time. Good. We got charts to talk about. We've got some example charts to look at and to compare with northern. It has, both charts are somewhat valid for the person because one is how your northern hemisphere, if you're born in the southern hemisphere, the northern hemisphere chart is how you will affect people in the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is how you have to be yourself and to find your confidence and to be happy. So first one I took was Paul Hogan, and really because he was Crocodile Dundee, and it's a question whether he was acting or whether he was being himself. But really he was well picked for his role. But in the northern hemisphere chart, he would be the Libra, the sensitive, sweet, pleasant Libra, the idealist Libra, with a Leo moon that's very proud that can do things. A moon conjunct Pluto. Okay, opposed by Mars, squared by Saturn. So it's a tough aspect. All the aspects will be the same. The house positions will be the same. It's only the signs that are different. But you see the Libra, the indecisive Libra, the idealized Libra, and the fixed Leo, the proud person. Okay. You wouldn't normally, if you're going to advise someone who came with a chart like that, you wouldn't normally be advising them to maybe to act. You could see the acting, but not necessarily the very physical or pull off the adventurer, cowboy adventurer type of thing, redneck, or call it what you will. But if you just change it to the Aries with the Aquarius moon, the Crocodile Dundee role isn't Aries. Well, don't do this, don't be with the crocodiles, go jump here, be in the woods, just go do it and have a plan. I know what I'm doing. In fact, don't tell me I can't. You say I can't do this, watch me do it. You have the Aquarius who knows what they're knowing, Pluto moon in Aquarius, that Aquarius, and the Aries. It's so obvious. He's much more follow me, I'm doing my thing. I'm not just going to follow you. I'm not going to just share. I'm not going to that. It's not about indecisiveness. It's about impulsiveness. And even though it's the actor conveyed that very clearly. It's to the point that you really can identify him as the role and the character are hard to separate here. So, okay, when we look just at the chart, we see it again. Again, all the aspects, they're all the same. The planets are in the same houses. They're just rotating the other way around. But this would be, he'd be the Aries. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. With the northern hemisphere chart would have had the Sagittarius rising, which would apply for a bit of an adventurer, but not in the style of the Libra. Okay, when you look at this with the Gemini rising and the Aries for sun and the Aquarius moon, you can see I know what I'm doing. I'm doing this. I'm going this. Don't tell me I can't do this. And having the opinions and the quick wit of the Gemini. Well, it could be argued, you can argue both ways. Both charts are, chart one is the northern hemisphere, one's the southern hemisphere, but his nature is to be the more impulsive side. And if he looks for security, he's not going to get it with the Pluto moon squared by Saturn, opposed by Mars. He's going to have to fight for it and do it. So if he's going to fight for it and he's doing it, I know what I'm doing. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me what I can't do. That's there. So this is just a black and white chart, northern hemisphere chart. Here's what the computer gives you. None of the computer programs, commercial, professional programs today, give you a proper southern hemisphere chart. They will all give you the northern hemisphere chart, time adjusted, but set up for the northern hemisphere zodiac. So this is what you'd get: the sun in Libra in the 11th, the moon in Leo in the 8th, and the aspects are there, and the Sag rising. But the Sag rising in the Leos is far more social than an Aries rising with a Gemini. But anyways, when you get this chart, this is still a useful chart. The planets, the aspects are still, well, I've highlighted the signs, put the circles, made them brighter, and I've highlighted the major aspects so they stand out for the screen show, because the other one's a little too faint for my liking. But what you do when you want to change to the southern hemisphere, you take the printout, use your chart, take the printout. I just made a picture, made it a bit bigger so you see the chart without all the others. So there's just the chart. First thing you do, you X out all the signs. It's not that sign. Next thing you do, you put this is what I do, I put a sign on each side. So I can see 2 Aries symbol where the Libra was, or 2 Tauruses where the Scorpio was. But anytime I look at this chart, I can see I know that it was the northern hemisphere Leo, but I can see, I'm reminded to remember the Aries and the Mars rulership, and not to forget it. And the categories of Aries or of Taurus, I'm reminded it. And so even though it looks a little funny with the signs crossed out, it's very functionally useful. When I'm going to interpret a chart, I'm looking at a house cusp. Even though if you didn't cross out, you have a tendency to use that house cusp and forget that sign on the house cusp. This makes you remember that, oh, it's not Leo, it's Aquarius on the 9th house cusp. It's not Virgo, it's Pisces on the midheaven. Who knows what I could do with Neptune in the 10th house. You just see the, yeah, so I'm just giving you this example so you can see what to do. For me, I use Photoshop and I pick up I made this dial with the X's and a dial with the circle with the signs on it, the same size as the matrix chart. So I just pick up the one and I put it on top and I've got it. But before I did that, I just used to X off the signs and write in the symbols of the signs around it to work with it.